some of the speakers that are up here tonight, you can always go to arkastcon.com, find the bios of all our panelists, and all the links to all their content is there. Also, we are recording every panelist that comes up here, so you don't have to worry about missing out on something they said or you missed a note, because we will be releasing that video later on in the next few weeks. For our third panel, we're going to go ahead and go into it. Our next panelists have been often guests of podcasts talking about their experiences as a mother and daughter team behind the massively successful health brand Balanced by Hilary. They have been featured in People Magazine, The Today Show, and The Doctors. Please welcome Hilary, Downey, and Bridget Shinn. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And our next panelist has served as the Northwest Arkansas coordinator for Arkansas Coalition for Dream and was also the statewide coordinator for the Arkansas Natural Dreamers. He is currently an ACLU of Arkansas board member and the host of the District 3 podcast. Please welcome Irvin Camacho.
I moved my foot like this and it started cramping up and getting tight, and I was like, don't do it right now. Don't do it right now. Hello, nice to meet you. Good, how are you?
All right, we'll get started. So my name is Hilary Downey. This is my mom, Bridget Shinn. So we do not actually have a podcast. Our podcast is launching at the end of this month. However, we are professional interviewees at this point. Like he mentioned, we have been interviewed by some major publications. We were in People Magazine this year, as well as being interviewed by Good Morning America, The Doctors, The Today Show, as well as lots of podcasts, tons of podcasts, and local news as well. So for us, our content is sharing our mother-daughter weight loss story. We each lost 100 pounds. We built a brand and a business. Thank you. We built a brand and a business off of our success stories, helping women all over the world now achieve their fit, healthy bodies. And because of our methods, they're very unconventional, we were able to gain a lot of attention, media attention. Social media is our primary way for leads, and also podcasts. All the podcasts that we've ever been on came from social media leads. So,
good afternoon, everybody. For those that speak Spanish, buenas tardes. My name is Irvin Camacho. I am a community organizer in Northwest Arkansas. I've been focused on immigrant rights for the past 12 years of my life. And I am the main host of the District 3 podcast. The District 3 podcast is a podcast that focuses specifically on community, highlighting people in Arkansas that are doing a good job, whether it being in politics, in just community in general, or in any other field. I felt that there was a space for that. There wasn't any media that was really highlighting people that are doing good work, sometimes even not getting paid for it, just doing it out of the goodness of their heart. So I thought that it was a good idea for us to be able to do that. And we started recording just in a little small room. Eventually, we ended up in a radio station. And then eventually, we ended up at the local NPR affiliate in Fayetteville, KUAF. We started recording there about a month ago. So things have been growing for us. People have been realizing that the stories that we share are important because there's a lot of good people in our state doing good work. Sometimes you hear, people in different states sometimes will get a bad rep. States will get a bad rep and say, hey, there's a lot of bad people in Arkansas or Alabama or all these different states, but there's a lot of good people too. There's a lot of good people doing good work and changing people's lives. So for us, we feel it's a responsibility to highlight them and educate people, on how they can get involved. That's the most important thing, getting people involved to be active in the community in whatever way. There's a spot for you in the community, and whatever you're passionate about, you just kind of have to explore and figure out what it is that you're passionate about and that you want to get involved with and help out with. So that's kind of where we come in. We bring people from all walks of lives, politicians, doctors, rappers, community activists, entrepreneurs, a little bit of everything. So you can check us out on every platform that has audio podcast. Just search up District 3 Podcast. Thank you all.
I want to go back to a question that was asked before the previous panelists, talking about barriers of entry. You know, whenever you're going into podcasting yourself, I know Hilary and Bridget, you don't have your own podcast yet. Well, it's coming out, right? But the first time you sat down in a chair and in front of a microphone, and you're recording your story, right? What was that like for you? And Irvin as well. When you sat down for the first time, you're usually involved in politics and that whole realm, right? So whenever you sit down in front of a microphone and start recording your own show, what was it like? What were some of the things that you had to overcome, either within yourself or within the industry that that was on your mind whenever you sat up there?
So I think for us, the big thing is that we are sharing a story, which makes it a little easier. You know, it's something that we've been through. But the biggest thing is just getting started. We've refined, we've told the story so much now. And I know some of the panelists before brought this up. You just have to rip that Band-Aid off and get started. And it is difficult at first to speak and talk in these situations, but it does get easier. In fact, it becomes natural. So for us, definitely difficult to get started, but at the same time, the more you do it and the faster you rip that Band-Aid off, the better.
One of the things that I hear a lot just by looking up social media is like, everybody's starting a podcast. Everybody feels like their voice matters, right? Well, it does. Everybody's got a unique story. Everybody's got something that can help out other people if they listen to their podcast. So for me, it was simply like understanding that I had a obligation to educate folks in our community about things happening, and also just, you know, looking at the next generation of people that can get involved in our community, and something simply as educating them as what's going on in their community can motivate people to get involved in their community. We've seen people who will show up to a forum that we do to educate them about the immigrant community, and then the next week they're organizing, and then the next week they're showing up, and it goes for years on, you know, just continuing to commit to their community and help out simply because of one forum that was done. So education goes a long way, and that's one thing that I realized, and it was one of the biggest motivating factors to continue doing this podcast. And we're at episode 143 as of last week. So yeah, we're really happy about it.
So for Hilary and Bridget, using podcasts as a platform to promote what you've done, right? You feel powerful. Of course, you guys lost over 100 pounds, right? And so that story is important to tell, to encourage people. And that's what your brand is all about. So why choose podcasting as a platform to promote that? Is it worthy of your time rather than putting out a Facebook ad or trying to get a magazine article out? Why podcasting?
Absolutely. And I actually wanted to touch on this because Sarah said something about, asking your guests. So we really are a good perspective if anybody wants to pick brains about being guests, but asking your guests to share the podcast. Absolutely. Even sending them, graphics, anything at all. So for us, the big thing with sharing our story on podcasts is when we were starting out and we had a very small social media audience, it allowed us to establish ourselves as experts. So to me, sharing that I was on a podcast made me appear as an expert. It was a chance for me to share my story and really plug for our programs and our services that we offered. And also to provide the podcasters' audience with value. That's the main thing that we want to bring every single time we're in an interview is give their audience some value. And so what's in it for us is just that ability to share our story and plug our brand, but also, offer value to the listeners and establish that expertise.
Irvin, I just really like taking your microphone away from you for a little while. Yeah. I was like tossing it around. So for you, it's the opposite side. You like to bring in people and like to promote them, right? So causes that are going on in the community, you like to raise up voices, people that are doing it right and doing it strong in the communities. So why do that rather than promoting yourself?
Man, I've been organizing in the immigrant community for 12 years now, and I've done my fair share of TV interviews and radio interviews. If you're going to be an organizer in the community, you have to uplift other people. You have to create new voices for the next generation. You have to highlight people that are doing good work because honestly, they deserve it. It's simple as that. It's nothing where it's like, I never thought to myself, well, I want to create this podcast just so people can listen to my voice. I hate my voice. I don't like my voice. It makes me cringe every time I listen to it. But I understand the importance, right? Because I've heard people give us feedback and say, hey, you talked about Black Lives Matter. As a Latino man, like that meant a lot to me that you were able to talk about that. You talked about LGBTQ plus issues. There's a lot of there's a lot of history in our community of people, against the LGBTQ community. And we were able to have a conversation with a trans person that's elected into the Fayetteville City Council and talk about, what's important to her and what she's doing. And you don't hear about any of that in our media, in our Latino media. So we were able to break barriers. And that's probably the most important thing to me, is having these difficult conversations that people are afraid to talk about, whether it be LGBTQ issues, mental health issues, or just in general, issues of things that are affecting folks in their everyday life. So that's what's most important to me. And I think that's why we've been able to get, good attention and to be called up to events like this, because we're trying to put people on that necessarily don't get don't get highlighted for their work. And that's what drives our podcast forward. And that's why we have 143 episodes so far.
Thank you. Very good. Yes, questions. Where do you all see the future of podcasts? What is the future? Tell us the future.
I definitely think that video is really important right now. I used to be the kind of person that would be like, I don't want to get on TikTok because I feel like it's for kids, right? That was me like 2 or 3 years ago. But TikTok does bring a lot of attention to podcasts. A simple clip of 20 seconds to a minute can get a lot of attention and can lead people to the platforms where your podcast is at. So I definitely think that video is super important. And I think it goes a long way in driving, traffic to people's podcasts. And that's something that I'm thinking about right now as to, how we can evolve to that.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. I use a software, so I've been batch recording everything called Descript. I don't know if y'all have any experience with Descript, but what it allows you to do is record the video and the audio, and it has this really cool feature where you can literally pull out the clips and adjust the size to fit things like TikTok, to fit like they were kind of talking about with the YouTube with the sideways vertical. So that's a really good thing. But we promote, or we gain all of our leads and traction on social media. So I really see the value of the video and showing up on social media, or having guests on your podcast that have bigger social media platforms, that we've been able to. We don't say no to anyone. We will go on any podcast as long as we align with their audience. And so when we share their podcast episodes, on our bigger social media, then, that gets traction to their podcast. But video, absolutely, I agree, is definitely the future.
And if you want to invest, an iPhone 13 has cinematic mode on the camera. And that, we've been using that for about a month and a half now. And it's a super HD quality video on your iPhone 13 that you can use when someone is talking. Like if you're interviewing someone on your podcast and they're about to go into a whole spiel that you think is very attention grabbing, video them when they're talking with that iPhone 13 cinematic mode, and the quality is amazing, and it really gets you views like on social media, on Instagram and TikTok, because Instagram and TikTok really like bright videos that look very colorful or that look very bright. So when you upload those type of videos, they seem to get more interactions on social media.
Is content thought out as far as
So I know for us, because of social media, we get a lot of questions. So everything I've been batch recording comes from questions that we've received from our audience. So that kind of goes back to the value piece of, giving them, the answers to the questions they have. How'd you get started? So for us, all the episodes that we've been batch recording have been answers to those commonly asked questions. I know that's how we do it.
I feel like it's hit or miss, to be honest, because one of our most listened to podcasts was our Roe versus Wade podcast that we did a few weeks ago, whenever everything happened nationally. But the most listened to podcast that we've ever had was when we interviewed a vice principal from Rogers in Arkansas. It's just random. A lot of people liked that person and they listened to it and they shared it and it just went crazy. So sometimes it's hit or miss, but I do think that it is important for you to see whatever's happening in society and try, to record a podcast about what's happening, because that podcast that we did on Roe versus Wade, we brought in, folks from females and then also someone from the trans community as well to speak about the issue, and it did get a lot of attention at the time and a lot of shares as well. Go first. Look, whenever I started doing the podcast, I was looking around for websites that would specifically be able to help me distribute my podcast. And I had difficulty at the beginning, even knowing where to start. And I ended up on Anchor, just the same way that the past panelists spoke about. And Anchor specifically, when you upload the audio that you record, you can edit it on there if you want to. I sometimes use either iMovie or GarageBand to edit or cut sometimes when I have to do extra stuff. But Anchor has helped me, and because they also distribute your podcast, like they'll send it to Spotify, they'll send it to Apple or other platforms as well. I am at a point now where I do want to really evaluate that and look at other places that people have spoke about today, and just to see if there's any kind of extra features that would help me to distribute the podcast or just be more effective in podcasting in general. But I do think it is something where you have to literally go website by website that you hear or know about and see the different features that can possibly help you. A good way to start, if you feel that that's overwhelming, go to Anchor. Anchor is really easy. You post the media on there. You can edit it on there if you want to. And then eventually you can go ahead and distribute it to all the different platforms. And that's something that I've used now for a long time. And I definitely recommend it. But one of the reasons why I'm here is because I want to listen to the other people and learn, what other kind of platforms they're using, and maybe evolve or maybe change to a different platform. But Anchor is a good way to start. I definitely recommend it.
Yes.
I just want to speak that for a minute about Anchor and whatnot. That's why I started out my podcast also was on Anchor. And the nice thing about podcasting is you can be what's called the RSS feed. And that's a little URL that if you decide, like I recently here about 6 months ago, moved my podcast to Captivate. .fm.
What was it you said?
Captivate. And the reason I moved it was because of the statistics. I wasn't getting the statistics I really needed on Anchor because it is free. They have much more in-depth statistics, and it really helped me out as far as targeting my audience. It was $17 a month, but it was easy to move because starting at Anchor for free, all I had to do was transfer my RSS feed over there. Boom, it was done. It was taken care of. And so once you get started, it's not hard to transfer to something that's more
What?
expansive. Yeah, expansive.
What extra statistics do you see in Captivate?
Oh gosh, of course you put me on the spot right on that. I get a state-by-state breakdown of listenership by state. Like the only state my podcast has ever been listened to is South Dakota. Now I do a conservative political podcast. South Dakota's conservative, and they don't listen anyway. So, but you can get around the world. Who listens around the world? You can get information on not listen time. That comes from being on Spotify and some of these other things will give you the listen time. But there's just a plethora of statistics on there that you can't really get as well on.
That was Captivate.
Captivate.
I'll look into it.
There's a bunch of, if you're wanting to do a video podcast, you can do Riverside FM. They will help you do a video podcast right off the bat. Again, it's a subscription thing, but if that's what you want to do and you don't want to have to buy all the equipment, so there's lots of sites out there to use. And I can't vouch for their statistics, but that's why I switched to Anchor Captivate.
I'll look into it.
Hilary, have you, Bridget, found your platform that you're going to use whenever you do distribute your podcast?
Riverside FM is what we were looking at. And, for us, we have a membership site. And so we're looking at different options for having these sort of secret podcast episodes that are exclusive content. So we're kind of plugging at the end of our, public episodes, hey, join our membership and you'll get the extended version of this. So there's some new ones that are out there that have that capability of those sort of, hidden secret episodes as well.
So what is your podcast going to be called? When can we expect it?
So it goes live at the end of this month, September 29th. We're shooting a promo video. So September 29th, and it is Balanced by Hilary.
Awesome. Thank you. And Irvin, where can we listen to District 3?
I think it's everywhere where you listen to audio podcasts. You can listen on Apple, Spotify, and those are usually like the favorite ones. Eventually, probably within the next 3 months, we'll be on YouTube. We're trying to evolve to a video podcast in the next few months, so you can see us on there. But for the meantime, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or everywhere you listen to audio podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you all.